This video is a starting place for anyone who wants to learn 3D software and to try and help you see it in a way that's easy to understand. For the video, we're going to use a software called Blender, which is completely free, and I can show you how to download that, or you can go down to the description. And let's get started by going all the way back to your geometry and algebra class.
Okay, so hopefully you've seen one of these in your math class. We have the X for the right and the left, and then we have the Y for the up and the down. Don't worry, we're not going to have to do any math here. We're just going to pretty much be moving around points and squares to create art. But for example, I want you to look at the 3D software in the same way you would a coordinate plane because it's very similar in the way that it works. So if we wanted to plot a point at the origin or the center, we would have 0 in the x and 0 in the y. And then another example could be if we wanted to go left 1 and down 1, that would be negative 1x and then negative 1y. And these plot points, these pink dots here, we call those in 3D software, we call them a vertice or a vertex. Sometimes we call them a vert. And then when we connect two or more vertices together, we get what's called an edge. And these edges are the lines that make up a face. So when we connect three or more edges together, we get what's called a face. So you can have triangles or squares, and usually you want to keep away from anything with more than four edges, but we'll worry about that later. Now, if we wanted to have the third axis that we're talking about here, which is the z-axis, we would have 0x, 0y, and then 0z. And then we would have forward and backward for the z. So y is up and down, x is left and right, and then z would be forward and backward. Now let's hop into the 3D software so that we can see that from a different perspective and from a different light. Okay, so just like the coordinate plane, here we have a red line for the x, which is the right and the left, and we have a green line for the y, which is the up and the down. We can see an example of that here, green y, x red, and then we have the blue one for the z. If we click on this red x here, we can look at it from the side, and we can see the blue is the forward and backward here. Now if I go back to the top here, by clicking on the blue Z, I can click on my cube and press tab and click on one of these dots, which we talked about are vertices. And you can see that by hovering over this section here, it says vertex select. If I click on one of them and I press the N key, I can see exactly where it is in space. And you can see this one is at negative 1x, 1y, and z1. And if we click on another one, we can see x 1 meter, y negative 1 meter, z 1 meter. And hopefully now you can see exactly how similar 3D software is to a coordinate plane. It's just a little bit more complicated, but we're not going to have to worry about all of that math, maybe just a tiny, tiny bit. We're just going to have to worry about creativity. So to download Blender, all you have to do is type Blender 3D download into Google, click on this first link, and then go down to the top left, click on download, and then you can press download Blender for Windows, and then if you wanted to download it for Mac or Linux for some reason, you could do that. Then once you do that, just go ahead and open it, and then we can get started. Okay, so this might be your first time opening Blender, so for now, let's just press on General to get started. On the bottom left here, you'll see what mouse keys I'm pressing and what keys I'm pressing on my keyboard in case you get lost. And for the first task, we're going to build a tree, most likely, but you guys can build a house, spaceship, or anything you can really think of just by moving, scaling, and rotating basic shapes. But we'll get into the UI first. I know there's a lot of windows and sections here, but let's just go over a few important ones for now. The large grid area here in the center with this cube in the middle is our 3D viewport. This is where we can see, build, and move our 3D models. And really, it's just like one giant coordinate plane, like we were talking about. On the left side here, we have our tools, which we can use inside of our 3D viewport. And above that, we can see our mode, which mode we're in. So we have object mode by default. We won't worry about the other ones for now. On the top right here, we have our outliner. This is where we can select and see everything in our scene, organize it, and rename it. And then right below that is our properties. This is where we can see the properties of anything we have selected and change them or edit them. Um, and then down here we have a timeline for animation, but we won't be touching that for now. I just wanted to show you that you can actually change any one of these windows into anything you want. So if I wanted this to be a second 3D viewport, I just click on this button right here on the top left, and then I can hover over the edge to make it another 3D viewport, or I could change it into another outliner if I wanted to see my outliner here, and I can also drag it around if I wanted to. I'm just going to leave this at timeline for now, and then leave everything else as default so that we can all have the same screen. So to move around in our 3D viewport, the first thing we need to know is how to click on our middle mouse button. So that's going to be your scroll wheel. So if you click down on your scroll wheel and just move your mouse around, you'll be rotating around your view. And that's just clicking down on the scroll wheel. And you can see that on the bottom left. It's between my left click and my right click. And just moving your mouse around. And if we want to pan our camera, we just hold shift and then we click the middle mouse button, and then we can move our mouse left, right, up and down, and then we can pan our view. And so moving around is just going to be a combination of clicking on your middle mouse button to orbit around, and then holding shift to pan around your view, and just getting used to that feeling. So just make sure you have a middle mouse button on your mouse, and you should be good to go. Now to zoom, all you have to do is scroll your scroll wheel. It's easy as that. And if you ever get lost, you can just hold down the tilde key, and that's that little squiggly line on the top left corner of your keyboard, usually next to the escape key. If you hold tilde, you can hold it down and then move your mouse over any one of these options. So if I wanted to view my viewport from the top, I just hover my mouse over that and then I let go of tilde. So I hold tilde, move my mouse over an option, and then let go of tilde. And then if I want to go back to my normal view, I just move my camera again. If you ever get lost, you just want to find your cube again, for instance. I can click on my cube here on the top right here in my outliner, and then I can hold tilde and then just go to view selected and just let go. And that's going to zoom me in on whatever I have selected. So if I want to zoom in on this light object, I could do that too. You could also just click on it in the viewport and then hold tilde and let go there. You can also click on these little red, blue, and green XYZ options to view from those angles. If you don't want to hold tilde to do that, it's just another option. Okay, so now let's go a little bit over these tools we have on the left side here. The first one is the selection tool. If you hold left click over this, you can choose a different option. So if you wanted to use the lasso, or if you wanted to choose a circle to select a bunch of stuff by holding left click and dragging, you could do that. I typically leave it on the select box. It's what I use the most. And then I'm just going to hold left click and let go on that. And that lets you drag a box by holding left click, and then you can select multiple things at once. Underneath that is the 3D cursor. We're going to ignore that for now. Don't touch that. And then underneath that, we have the move tool. If we have the move tool selected and we click on an object, we can see these blue, green, and red lines. So the red line is going to move it into X, green for Y, blue for Z. And if we hold left click on one of these arrows, we can move our object in any one of those directions. You can click on these little flat squares to move your object in two directions or two axes at once. And so the blue one is going to lock the Z axis, and then the green one or the red one would lock the X axis, and the green one will lock the Y. So it's going to move it in the other two. So if you wanted to move in more than one axis, you could do that. If you want to return your object to where it was, you can press N to open your um, items transforms. So we have this cube selected, we can see where its location is. Similar to the coordinate plane, we have the x at 0.4 something something, and then y and z. If we wanted this to go back to 0, we can just click here, press 0 and then enter, 0 and then enter, 0 and then enter. Or you could type, for instance, 50 if you want it to be 50 in the x, or let's say 5. And if you just want to undo what you just did, you can press Control and Z at the same time, and it's going to undo the last thing that you did. Now, under the Move tool, we have the Rotate tool. So instead of those arrows, we just have these little curvy lines. If we select our object and hold left click on one of these, the green one is going to rotate it in the Y, the blue is the Z, the red is the X, and then the white one is just going to rotate it from the angle you're viewing it at. So I'm viewing it from this angle, so it's going to rotate it from here. Again, if you want to undo, you can type zeros, or you can just Control Z to undo the last thing that you did. If I wanted to rotate it at 45 degrees in the Y, I could also just type that. And then underneath that, we have the Scale tool. Again, it works exactly the same way as the Move tool. If we want to scale in the Z axis, we hold left click on that cube there and just drag our mouse. And then same for the X and the Y. If we want to scale in 2, we have those little flat squares the same way we had it for the Move tool. And I believe the white one just scales it in everything all at once. So if you wanted to scale the whole thing, you would select that one. Again, undo, or just press 1 for this one, because a scale of 1 would mean full, and 0 would be nothing. All right, so one last thing before we start creating is how to add objects. The first thing I want to add is a cylinder, so I'm going to go here to the top left where we have add, and if you hover over it, it tells you what the shortcut is. It says Shift A, but for now I'm just going to click add. I'm going to go to mesh, which is the same thing as an object, and we're going to go to cylinder, and now we have a cylinder. It's going to add it exactly at the 0, 0 point in our coordinate plane, and I just want to scale this like I would a tree trunk. So let's say that's my tree trunk. I'm just going to press on this cube and press X to delete it, and press delete. You can also just click on it here and press delete, and that works too. So now we have a tree trunk. The next thing I want to do is add a branch. So to add a branch, we want to duplicate this trunk so we don't have to keep adding cylinders. How do we duplicate something? We just click on it, and then we hold Shift and D for duplicate. Now when you duplicate something, wherever you move your mouse and then press left click, that's where it's going to duplicate that object. Right now it's moving it from the camera angle, but if you want it to move from a specific axis, you can press Z, for instance, to only move in the Z axis, or Y to only move in the Y axis. For now I'm just going to press Y. I'm going to move that up here, and I'm going to scale it down using this one, and maybe make it a little bit thinner like this. And I'm going to move it into place here as a branch, and I'm going to rotate it like this. And again, just move it. And now we have a tree trunk and a branch. And if we wanted to add more of these branches, we just hold Shift D and we move it, and then we can rotate it and move that one into place as well. And if we wanted it to be a different scale, we could do that like this. And let's just add one more for this example for now. We're just going to rotate that like this. I'm going to move it this way. And then I'm going to scale it a little bit. That. Cool. So now we have a tree trunk with 3 branches. And let's say we wanted to add some cylinders for the leaves, or spheres, sorry. Shift A is the shortcut, or you can just press Add Mesh. I'm just going to press Shift A, go down to Mesh, and I'm going to choose the UV sphere here, and then we have a sphere. I'm just going to move this into place like that, and I'm going to scale it like this. And then I'm going to do that Shift D with the sphere selected, and then we can just drag it over here and press left click. And we can scale that one too. Let's say we want that one to be a little bit bigger. And let's do one more. And I'm going to scale that one a little bit down. And if you want to duplicate a branch with leaves already on it, the way you can do that is by clicking on the branch, holding Shift, and then clicking on the sphere. Now you can see these 2 objects both have orange outlines. That means they're both selected at the same time. And we can press Shift D, and that's going to duplicate both of them at the same time. And we can actually rotate both of them at the same time if we wanted to. And then move them. And even scale them. Oops. Let's do that. Sure. Let's say that's fine. Let's say that's our tree. Now that we have one tree, let's say we wanted to make a forest. The first thing we want to do is probably combine all of this into one object. And the way we can do that is just by selecting everything like this. And I don't want the light selected, so I'm going to hold Control and then left click on it, and then that's not going to be blue anymore, so it's not selected. You can also just select everything one by holding Shift and left clicking, but I'm just going to do it this way. And now that I have all of this selected, I'm going to press Control and J to join all of that together. Oops. Don't know if that worked. Okay. I'm just going to hold Shift and click on all of this and then press Control J. And now that worked. And I can change the name of this to a tree. Now we have tree. And we can actually hold Shift and D to duplicate this tree. Rotate it around. Scale it maybe. And now we have 2 trees. And if we wanted to duplicate both of these at the same time, we just shift click and then we do that again. And we can do something like this, and we can make an entire forest. Okay, a few more quick notes. If you want to actually be able to move something along the direction it's rotated, for instance, right now you can see I can only move it right like this. If I want to move it precisely in the direction it's rotated, I can change this option from global transform to local transform, and that's going to understand that it's been rotated this much, so we're going to want to move it in the direction it's rotated, and now we can move it along its z-axis and its x-axis rather than the whole world's x, y, and z, because every object has its own. And then these ones we can get into another time. Another thing you might want to do is be more precise with your movements, and you can do that by turning on this little magnet here. It's set to incrementally move automatically when you have the magnet on, so you can see it sort of snaps rather than moving perfectly. And then we can actually turn on the rotation and scale settings too. So if we wanted to rotate it with snapping values, we can do that, or scale it with snapping values. You can see how it's snapping. And then if you wanted to, you could change these values. So let's say we wanted to do every 45-degree rotations. So it'll only rotate it in 45 degrees. And you can just change that back to 5 after you're done. One last thing, we can actually move the origin point of our object. So you see right now it's in the middle and it rotates from the middle. That might not be how we want to do things. So you can change the origin point by going to the top right here under options and clicking origins. And now you can see the big Z that's showing that we're moving the origin point, and then we can snap that to the bottom here. We can turn off the snap if we want. Let's say that's where we want it. Now we can turn off the origin transform again. And if we rotate it now, it's going to rotate from the bottom. So have fun with it. Make a UFO, a bird, a plane, Superman. Just be creative. And next time we're going to learn how to actually edit these shapes to make anything we want.